You're listening to Tehachapod with Key Budge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
Tehachapod time again. Key Budge, Greg Garrett, Corey Costello in studio. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing good.
Great.
I don't think the three of us have been together for a couple weeks
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
since
I know
we've all
Ashley's
sat
been
together.
filling in. Different things have been, I've been busy here and there, meetings, whatever.
And Ashley has been added officially as one of our co-hosts. So it's not just three of us, it'd be four of us, and we'll just kind of do a little rotating through. So we're going to welcome Ashley aboard. She did a great job filling in for me while I was gone. She's been a co-host on previous shows with me, and so it's nice to have Ashley as our fourth and add a female voice to the program.
I've already got lots of compliments about Ashley being on the show. So
well, very good.
It's good, yeah.
Good. Well, today we are going to welcome back Don Marsh, our Public Works Director. Don, welcome back to Tehachapod.
Thanks, Key.
I grabbed you yesterday and says, hey, the topics that we're going to have at City Council, I think we need to talk about it once it's been presented to Council. We presented to Council. And Don, let's talk about what your item that you delivered to the Council, because I think it's important for everyone to hear about this. And we'll get into a little bit of the minutiae so people understand the backstory on this project.
Presented and approved by City Council.
Yes.
And I'm looking at Don, he's a little giddy. He's super excited about this because these are great projects for our infrastructure here at the City of Tehachapod, maintaining our infrastructure. Good
You
stuff.
got to be really careful when you tell an engineer that you want to get into the minutia. So that's why.
We want people to keep listening, so let's get the tops of the waves.
So let's talk about, what did you present to Council last night?
We have had on the books a project to replace a section of water main on Denison Road, basically from High Line down to Pinion. That line has been a problem for several years. It continually has leaks that we have to repair once or twice a year.
It serves a big area too.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of customers on that line. Everything from the high school to the Orchard Glen development and everything east of Denison, including Pilot and Loves and everything out that direction. So there's a lot of customers on that line. So we had planned on replacing that. We've had it in the budget to replace next year. Because we've just continually had failures and two recent ones, we decided to try and accelerate that. And fortunately, Council agreed. And so we're going to actually move that money from next year into this year's budget.
So kind of like our streets and roads, you have an index for streets and roads, the condition. And so we have an index for our water infrastructure. And so we've been planning on replacing this line next fiscal year, which is actually 1 year from now, July through June. But there were so many leaks and it had been pre-designed, which is amazing, right? And it was by Andrew and Jay, others on our engineering staff. And so we're able to just pull that design off the shelf and go out to bid.
Yeah, so some years ago, we actually identified two projects, actually, that we had frequent issues with, leaks and things. One of those was Cherry Lane Pipeline, and the other one was the Denison Main. So a few years back, we decided, hey, let's get the engineering done on these. We know these are going to have to be replaced eventually, so let's get the engineering done. And then when we have money available, we can do those projects. And so right or wrong, we chose to do the Cherry Lane project first, and so we did that this year. It's actually just finishing up. Unfortunately, the Denison line is just too much of a problem. It affects a lot of customers when we shut it down. So it's really an inconvenience to the customers. So we decided to go ahead and just do it this year.
You brought up the funding piece, which we've talked a lot about our budgets recently, and we talk a lot about reserves. Normally you had that funding budgeted for the next fiscal year, but the ability to fund it now because there are reserves will help make that repair as opposed to waiting a year from now.
Yeah, that's why we have reserves. I mean, for projects like this or issues like this that come up, if we need to repair a well or replace a pipeline, that's why we have reserves. Everybody's water bill every month, we don't spend every penny of that.
Yeah.
Some of that water bill, the fees that you pay for water, those go into a reserve so that we have money available to do maintenance.
Something breaks.
You think about our infrastructure, it's over 100 years old in many cases, whether it's water, sewer, streets and roads, so on and so forth. But, you have to properly plan, design plan, set money aside, with a leaking water system, and this is a 16-inch
14-inch.
14-inch line. That's a big line. Concrete cracks, water lines leak. And we don't want to, necessarily recharge the aquifer with our water system, right? We want it to be sealed for safety and security purposes. But this is an exciting project to me to know that we're planning appropriately, we're setting aside money, we're doing all the right things to service the citizens of the city of Tehachapi.
Yeah, water and wastewater are almost victims of our own success. It's just a given that those systems operate and work. When you turn on the tap, when you turn on your shower, water comes out, and it's 99.999% reliable. It's always there. And so people tend to not think that we have to do maintenance on these systems. They don't last forever. Just like your car, you got to do maintenance on it. You got to change the tires. You got to lube the chassis and change the oil. And this is no different. We have to do maintenance on our water systems as well.
And when you do the maintenance and you find a leak or you dive into this water line, I think you started to identify issues that maybe where we've updated the standards of things, where there was, instead of it being in a nice bed of soft sand where the pipe can vibrate, you guys found that it was packed around with some gravel and rocks and boulders, and that helps deteriorate the pipeline. But our standards have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some issues that were found when we were digging up this line to repair it. It really, in many cases, wasn't installed correctly. There was some problems with the way that the backfill was done, and very common with pipeline work. But since the time 20 plus years ago that this was installed, the city is much better now than we were in the past. We have much more robust inspection procedures and city standards for installation. We've evolved and grown over the years to be better than we were.
Yeah, we have a public infrastructure inspector whose job is just to make sure that those things are all built up, because we're going to own it when it gets built by a contractor. So his entire job is to make sure those things are done appropriately. And sometimes he's isn't the best friend of a contractor because he needs to make sure that 20 years from now, as Don put last night, we're not finding Volkswagen-sized rocks and boulders inside of a ditch where a water main is.
But he's looking out for the ratepayer or the taxpayer in this case, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and he inspects everything from asphalt work to sidewalks, curb and gutter, sewer lines.
And he'll be inspecting the new line that we put in a couple months, right? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. He's been inspecting the Cherry pipeline.
That went extremely well, by the way. Kudos to everybody involved with the Cherry Lane replacement. So that was from Tucker to the Cherry Lane Estates area. Just about finishing up. I know that most of the pipeline's in, and now some of the road work and different things, but
a little bit of tie-in work left to do.
Tie-in work, but we appreciate everybody's patience, everyone being very safe in construction zones. That's really important, isn't it, Key?
Oh, it is.
How just slow for the cone zone, as Caltrans says. That's super important.
We were able to close Cherry Lane, a little bit of more of an inconvenience to drivers, but it really saved on the construction time and made it much safer, first of all, but also much more efficient for them to be able to just work in that area during the day and then open it up at night.
Right.
You mentioned that, and you talk about the savings of construction time, but also saves in construction costs. And I think one of the things that you said last night that perked my ears when you were talking to Mayor Smith and the council was that by taking this Denison Waterline project this year, we are probably going to save money based on having it on the shelf to go next year by expediting it to this year with this approval. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's in construction work, it's always cheaper to do it now than it is next year or the year after, right? Prices are never going to go down.
Yeah, but prices don't usually go down.
Right.
No, and we actually have a unique opportunity right this moment that this contractor's wrapping up this Cherry Lane work. There's a chance if we can get this out to bid that he could actually bid on the other work, that there's other contractors in the area right now also that do that kind of work that could bid on it. So whenever we have contractors in the area, it also saves us money.
And these are specialized contractors, and mobilization costs, that's a big deal. When you bring in big, heavy equipment up the hill, whether it's from the AV or from Bakersfield, that takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and that's all introduced into the cost of the project.
Always cheaper to do it earlier rather than later.
Is this a project that it's going to go out to bid? We accept the bid. They can break ground on it in the coming weeks and months, or is this still going to move into the spring of next year. Where are we at with this?
No, this basically, as soon as we get all of the contracts in place and everything, they can start right away.
Yeah, we have to advertise the bid and the accepting bids and all that, and there's a certain amount of time, and then there'll be the bid opening and awarding to the council again, and so then it can start. So, and you had another one that was going to be open bids, and for the grind and overlay project. So switching to asphalt very quickly, everybody's second favorite topic on top of the excitement of water lines and water mains is asphalt. And so you also had that item last night for it's a pretty good local road maintenance project that's going to be happening on some residential streets.
Yeah, one thing that we didn't talk a lot about, again, to improve the efficiency and improve the cost, this is actually 2 years worth of work that we're bidding together. So this was paving work from last year and from this year that we combined so that we could get a better price. Again, the mobilization cost for these paving projects is extremely high. Usually it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for them to mobilize to get all of that heavy paving equipment up here and the grinding. We combined these 2 years so that we could really maximize the efficiency there with the contractor. So the council approved that last night. This is actually awarding the bid for basically 4 streets: Anita, C, Maple, and Elm Street, South Elm, south of Valley Boulevard. So.
And some of these connect to recent projects that were done. So we had the Snyder project that was done last year. C Street has been in area of concern for several years. I know people that live on C Street, and they bug me constantly. So thank you, Don. But also Anita. So those go into the new Snyder project, which was done last year, which is great. So this kind of feeds off some improvements that were done with some grants. And then those other streets are just, again, they're around some newer infrastructure stuff, kind of needing that sort of TLC from just years of being driven on by residents.
Oh yeah, the asphalt on C Street, as an example, is less than an inch thick.
I've seen it. It's crumbling. Nuts. Yeah, I had a friend of mine lives over there, and he actually said, every time your street sweeper goes by, I totally appreciate it, but they're sweeping up asphalt. They're sucking up asphalt. So thin. Yeah.
We've actually stopped sweeping that street for that reason.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, it's crazy how some of that stuff was built. We talked about how water mains, that's changed. But even roads. I mean, I know you all found some great surprises when you redid Snyder, just kind of things popping up. But it's amazing how some of that stuff was built years ago with just like, let's slap some asphalt down on the dirt and call it good. And there really wasn't a lot of science.
It's exactly. There's no base, no compaction. It's just right down on the dirt. Yeah. Hopefully we'll make that a little bit better and get it to last for a little while.
And I guess people can compare it to what last year's Green Street project was, a big grind and overlay. And that was a pretty cool project just to watch how efficient that was when it got going. And you talk about mobilizing equipment, and those guys came up here. You just had an assembly line of trucks and rollers, and that thing went very, very well.
Yeah, these asphalt contractors, they know how to do asphalt work. They get it down fast, and they really do a good job.
Yeah, truck after truck, they were all lined up, ready to go.
No, the asphalt's hot, so they have to move.
Yeah.
It cools off. It's no good. There again, our inspector, Jason, he's checking temperatures. It has to be 50 degrees or rising as far as the outside ambient temperature. The asphalt has to be a certain temperature. You have to be able to compact it or roll it within a certain amount of time. It's highly scientific.
And then we test the compaction as well afterwards. Right. Not only before we put down the asphalt, but then after as well.
And I would venture to guess when C Street was built, back in the day, none of those checks and balances were in place, right? It was a developer that was building homes on the street. Everybody was excited they were there because you could, buy a new house, so on and so forth. And he just put down an inch of asphalt over native, and now we're paying for it. But nowadays, it's, kind of plug and play, and you pay as you go.
Ironically, when you're done, it looks the same. Yeah. Whether there's an inch, 2 inches, or 4 inches, it looks the same. But it's what's underneath that really counts, and for the longevity of the asphalt.
I wanted to key in on Anita. There happens to be a junior high school on Anita. One thing.
Why did you do this during the summer, Don? Yeah. Come on!
We missed that memo.
Oh my gosh!
Because that was
it's
the big question that people are going to have, and I think we've got to make sure we talk about that. I got good news
for all the kids. We're going to close the school while we're doing construction.
No school.
I'm not sure the superintendent's going to go for that, or the moms and dads.
Should we run that by the district?
But what I did love was the point that was brought up is the consideration for school in session is already in place. Can you talk a little bit about that so parents will go, okay, I'm good with this?
No, that's built into the contract. All the work that's going to go on over there will be done after or outside of school hours, either after school or on the weekends. There are a few off days that the school has in there as well, and we've worked those in to the contractor as options for them to work. But it's really up to the contractor to schedule their work, and we'll be working with them, obviously, very closely and controlling when they work and when they don't. But it will all be outside of school hours. You may have a little bit of changing in traffic patterns slightly, but there won't be any traffic issues.
Yeah, everyone knows safety is always number one. Safety is number one when it comes to the city of Tehachapi. School's out for 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
It's not a big summer vacation.
Not anymore. My goodness. And it's super tough to work that. It's like shoehorning something in. And we try. I mean, that's the first thing we talk about in these planning meetings.
But should things happen, and things will happen, and maybe they may have to do some work during school hours. There were some new sidewalks built over there not too long ago, and it's not going to kill Billy to walk half a block into the junior high school, being dropped off. Maybe he's on Denison, that kind of stuff, because that infrastructure was built for the safe route to schools. So that's all complete.
Now, that work on Snyder, that was very complicated work.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of school starting last year, and it was very challenging to get that done. But there were no issues. Yeah. There was really none.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, the parents, the school bus drivers, the kids, the school kids, administration, teachers, everybody worked well together to get that job done.
When will this get started?
We awarded the contract last night, so there's generally about 30 days to kind of get all of the paperwork in order and get the contract signed and all the stuff, the paperwork stuff that needs to be done. So really after that approximately 30 days, then they can get started at any time. So I would imagine around the end of September, beginning of October is when we'll start the paving work.
And with the grind part too, it's important to point out there will be a day where it gets grinded, and it might sit a day or two before it gets paved or whatever it might be.
Oh, sure.
So you can drive on at that point, but don't be hauling on that road if it's been grind down a little bit. It's going to be a little bumpy, a little rough, and so those roads will be passable. They just will be a little rough.
It is a residential street in front of a school, so I would hope you'd be driving slow. And
maybe some people in residential streets, they would like us to grind it and leave it, because we get a lot of complaints about people speeding in residential streets,
giant
right?
Speed bump, yeah.
Sometimes there's just idiots that drive too fast in residential neighborhoods.
So we're looking at the end of September,
they're motorists,
beginning
not
of
idiots.
No,
They're motorists.
motorists, not idiots. I have this problem of saying what I'm thinking.
So end of September, beginning of October for the actual paving work. As a matter of fact, we're actually starting preparations for that work right now. We're going to be replacing certain sections of curb and gutter on Anita and C Streets, and then eventually Maple as well, in preparation for the asphalt work.
So our in-house construction crew.
Yeah, so our public works crews will be out there working. They're out there working today and getting started. We'll be tearing out sections of curb and gutter. There's certain sections that have been just destroyed basically from tree roots or trees that were in the parkways, those kinds of things. It's nearly impossible to try and pave and match up to that curb and gutter. So what we're going to go do is some sections are 2 or 3 feet. Some sections are 30 or 40 feet. It just depends on how bad of a condition those are in. So we'll be replacing those, and then they can come in behind us and do the paving work. So,
and then they'll be working on all of these streets basically the same time. They'll get all the grinding done, and then the asphalt comes in to be done on one day. They do all the streets, right? Is that
most likely that's the way it'll work? Yeah, they'll do all the grinding. Certainly on the stuff that's together, like Anita and C, they will grind it and then pave it. I don't know the exact timing. We'll have to work with the contractor on what their thoughts are and how they bid it, because every contractor has different ideas on what's the most efficient for them. Generally, they like to bring in a piece of equipment, get all of that work done. So like bring in a grinder, they'll do all the grinding, and then they'll come in and bring the pavers in, and they'll do all the paving. Generally, that's the way they do it, but I can't say for sure.
And Key, we can, with our social media and different, communication platforms, we can push all of this information out to the residents and the visitors alike, whether you're bringing your kids from Bear Valley to the junior high or you live on Anita, it matters.
And there'll be some changes too if you're on one of those streets that maybe, hopefully it won't line up, but it always seems to line up with your trash and recycling service. So you may have to be on the alley or in the street or drag them to the end of the corner or whatever it might be. So we'll communicate all that stuff ourselves, and waste management will get that stuff communicated.
We have a really good system. I know that, Don, you communicate well with our safety also, whether it's police, fire, ambulances. Everybody knows the condition of the construction zone for the day. So if there's an emergency, you can go direct, or maybe you have to take a small detour, but you know how to get to that particular address.
Yeah, there's a lot of coordination behind the scenes that most people don't realize.
It's not like building a new neighborhood where you could just go do it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Don, I want to ask you one more thing, because what it brings to my mind is, how do you figure out what streets are going to be done and when? Because I know the answer, but I know that by listening to this, people are going to go, well, why didn't you do my street? Why this street? So what is that process that you have put together?
He's got a giant map on his wall, and he just throws darts. I mean, if you're just your
or
dart
maybe you
doesn't
need
hit,
to know Corey, and then you're put in a good word.
complain to me.
I mean, I'm not
No,
sure.
it's the darts.
I
You
mean,
just throw
honestly,
darts.
no. What's the real
And
story?
Don's
Don?
right-handed, so he always leans to the stuff that goes to the
I have
east
a
of the
map,
city.
and all my friends' houses are mapped on
There
there.
you go. Right.
Tell us the truth, John. Well, how do you really figure it out?
It's actually mostly science, but a little bit of art.
Ooh, he's an artist now. You hear that? He's an artist. All right.
So we have a ranking or a rating for every street. It's called the Pavement Condition Index. For literally every block of asphalt that we have a condition index for that. And it's a 0 to 100. 100 is perfect condition. And so we have those numbers. It's very easy to just rank every street based off of the condition. It doesn't generally make sense to do one block of asphalt at a time. So, one block over on C Street and then a block up in Heritage Oaks and a block over in Cherry Lane. So what we do is we try and group those together. And then we also, the art part of it is which streets get the most traffic, which streets kind of are more high visibility areas. And so those are given a little bit higher priority than just a cul-de-sac somewhere, quite frankly, that doesn't get any traffic and maybe is in okay condition. There's a main street that is a little bit worse and gets a lot of traffic. Obviously, we're probably going to focus our attention to there.
Such an artist.
Well, and also
Vincent Van Road over here.
Vincent Van Road. But also funding sources dictate where you can and cannot spend the money sometimes.
A lot of the time that's the case.
Yeah, a lot of
well,
the time is right. And then keeping a healthy budget, right? We talk about reserves, but it's about a very healthy city budget so that we can sometimes provide matching funds, sometimes use general fund just to go do certain streets and roads, match it with SB1 money, which is the state money that we're getting a little bit here and there. And that's a whole nother podcast, by the way, but it's scientific and art to bring the finances together also.
Yeah, so that's how we look at and prioritize the streets. But there's also some of that includes as well preventive maintenance versus replacement. So the work that was awarded last night by council was really replacement work. We have to balance our replacement money versus our preventive maintenance money. So preventive maintenance is basically doing slurry seal. We did some of that work last year, and that helps preserve and extend the life of the existing asphalt. A lot of our roads, unfortunately, are not in a condition that they can be extended. They need to be replaced. So that's what the work we're doing in this contract on Anita, C, Elm, and Maple. Later this year or in the coming months, we're going to be awarding some additional work or going out to bid for some additional work that is
Slurry
seal. Thank you. Slurry seal work that, again, helps extend that. So we want to try and take a portion of our money to help extend the life of our existing streets.
And we do that, usually we try to do that annually. I know we did a lot of that last year, but that's always good to see fresh black.
Yeah.
It adds that moisture back, I guess that's the right word, into the asphalt, and like you say, extends the life.
Yeah, believe it or not, the asphalt does kind of dry out, and the heat from the sun and then the cold in the winter gets cracks, and so the slurry seal helps fill in those tiny cracks and prevent the water. Water is the bane of asphalt. That's what destroys all the asphalt.
Once you get a crack, the water infiltrates the base, and it just starts to come apart from the bottom up.
Yep.
And what about striping? We're going to be striping later this fall, so new paint in the city?
We have that coming up as well. That will be awarded probably in the next couple of months, and we'll get all new striping for all the major streets. Those are the lines on the sides of the road and in the center, and then bike lane paint as well.
And we try to do that in the fall because winter, you get the fog and different things happening, so you want fresh paint entering into that winter season. We try to do that every year too, so that's always good too. Black and nice new paint.
Timing, there's a lot of things that are going in here, as I hear, in the balance of making sure that we are looking at roads that are in okay shape and we can keep them okay or better just by adding a little bit of effort to it, and then addressing those that really need the TLC, and you can get in there and do what we're doing on Anita and C and the other streets. But it seems like we've got a balancing act that you go through to make sure that you're looking long term and taking care of the immediate needs as well.
Yeah, it is a balance. And the preventative work, just from a cost perspective, the preventative work, as Jay said last night at the council, he said it well, it's pennies. And the replacement work is dollars, it's major dollars. So we can do a lot of preventative work for a relatively small amount of money, and the replacement work really is expensive.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how much in just the 125 plus years of the city, how, I've ran into old pictures in the museum and things like that of the, original kind of public works team used to grade the roads. And they had the roads were dirt, and they picked up horse manure, and they sort of graded and put water down to keep the dust down downtown. I mean, that was first several years of it, and now we're going into the science of road maintenance and bays and indexes and all that stuff. It's amazing.
We have a great picture in City Hall conference room of the first street light downtown that was powered with electricity.
Right.
And they had a big city dance, to celebrate the first streetlight.
Yeah. Expectations are a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh.
We covered some good ground here. There's work that's about to be done, planned, but we're also taking advantage of work that has been completed with engineering and looking ahead and identifying future projects that we're going to need to do. It's on the shelf, ready to go. Pull it off the shelf, save time and money, and now we can put it in play.
Yeah, the best thing we can do is plan for the future. We don't want to be doing things at the last minute in a rush, and it ends up costing more and taking longer.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of a couple city departments working well together, whether it's, engineering and public works, or with this case, communications, just who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, when we do it. Well, it's super important to communicate this out.
And include the finance department. And administrative department. I mean, look at how many departments are involved talking, communicating to make sure we get out the information, we put things together so not only we work cohesively, but the community can understand and see the benefit, I think. And I like the fact that we have a long-term vision, and it's not just reacting.
Good people doing good work. I'm super proud of our teams. Yeah.
Well, anything else that we need to touch on? These were two things I thought were very important that the community would like to hear, these kinds of updates. But is there anything that
I'd like to add a couple things. I made some notes while we were talking, Key. That is last night also at the city council meeting. We swore in a new sergeant, Sergeant James Clark. He comes to us from LA County. We're really excited about continuing to invest in our public safety. We also approved the purchase of a new Dodge Charger for our police department. So it's super important to have the equipment to do certain things like that. We said thank you to Stacey Curry. She's an outgoing city treasurer. It's an elected position. So thank you again to Stacey Curry, but we'll be advertising for that position in the local newsprint. And then, of course, Mountain Festival is coming up this weekend. Last weekend, we had some great events. Cheers to Charity. Lots of people donating their time and money. I know Airstream Renewables strung all the lights. The local wineries and breweries were out there. Rotary was there with silent auction. Subaru out of Bakersfield. This is a big Subaru town, right? but a lot of people donating their time and money towards Cheers to Charity, and that money rolls right back into the community. So thank you to everybody involved there. And then Tehachapi Valley Arts Association Chalk on the Walk last weekend. A lot of people using chalk and drawing on our sidewalks downtown. And if you haven't seen the art, come on down and check it out. It's some really talented people in this community. So lots going on. I just wanted to touch on some of those.
And we should point out too, I think Councilmember Wiggins pointed out, when we talked about Mountain Festival, it's not our event per se. And most of the events outside of pretty much the 4th of July and Farmers Market aren't our events, but the city and the city staff plays a huge role in these events, and frankly, a lot of times doesn't charge for that. I think Public Works this weekend is going to be so busy. Road closures for Mountain Festival, car shows, and the things happening in Central Park. I know TBRPD kind of chips in, and the police department. I mean, they've got guys and gals working on overtime this weekend. I mean, we're talking several $1,000s, and that's just Mountain Festival, to the tune of $17,000 or so, and other Apple festivals coming up. And there's a lot of support that gets provided because we're able to do that. But it's one of those things we have to look at that and really realize that, again, having a strong budget is important so we can help support these events. Cheers to Charity, because even that requires some public work setup on the airport and things like that. So really important to have those that strong budget so we can continue to provide that support for other people to bring events to this community.
Folks, if you've got a question about anything that we've talked about, if it's something for Don, Greg, Corey, myself, or someone else within the city, send us an email, media@tehachapicityhall.com. We'll be happy to answer questions. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that we get the information to you the way you'd like to hear it. We also invite you to come on out to Coffee with the Mayor the third Thursday each month at 7:30. And we just appreciate the time you spend with us. Don, thank you for taking the time, out of your day to come in and help explain this again.
And you kept it so that we could understand it. You didn't get too deep into the engineering world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was hard.
To speak our language.
And Greg, Corey, thanks for swinging by, because this again was another impromptu where I'm pointing at you, goes, hey, I need you guys in here. I need you in here. We need to talk about something.
You saw me run down the hallway and you actually called my cell phone. Wait, come back.
I did.
We're like, where's it going?
That's exactly what happened. Again, folks, media@tehachapicityhall.com. We appreciate your time, and we'll catch you again soon right here on Tehachapod.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapod.